You're listening to Inside the Mines with Dante Marsh and Ryan Hyde, a podcast about life, lessons, and whatever the hell else they want to talk about.
Today on the Inside the Mines podcast, our guest won the Stanley Cup in 1989 with the Calgary Flames. He won a gold medal with Team Canada in the 2002 Olympic Winter Games, had 1,088 points in 1,084 games. Please welcome Theo Fleury.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
How's it going today, Theo?
It's going all right, man. Lots of snow in Calgary, so.
It's piss and rain in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island, so nothing new there.
Beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place. And of course, my co-host, Mr. Dante Marsh.
In beautiful California, it's kind of sunny. It's cold still, though, for me. It's probably like 48, 50.
Cold? Yeah. I'd be out on the golf course with that kind of weather.
Man, the coldest I've ever been, it might have been 2013 when we played the Stampeders. It was like a nothing game towards the end. We was already going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Tell you, that was the coldest shit I've ever been in my life. Man, nobody wanted to. I didn't want to tackle nobody. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Once we got there, shit. Let's hurry up and go home.
Yeah. Let's mail this one in.
So Theo, you're obviously watching the World Juniors right now.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on Team Canada so far?
Awesome.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well.
Wow. When you have 19 first-round draft picks,
yeah,
you expect, offense, and that's what we've seen. So it'll be interesting when they play Finland today later on. See how that that happens. But it's the greatest hockey tournament in the world.
Yeah.
By far. I played in two of them, and to this day, still one of my favorite tournaments that I've ever played in.
So you had a bit of an incident in the 1987 World Juniors. We can call it an incident, I guess. Yeah. Dante was a little surprised. I showed him the video. He'd never seen it before. And I said, Dante, just wait till you see this. They turned the lights out on these boys. What happened, I guess, is kind of the question.
Well, back in those days, that was happening every night in the Western Hockey League, right? There's either a bench clearing brawl or a line brawl or whatever. So to us, it wasn't, out of the ordinary. But basically, the scenario was because the tournament was completely different back then. It was a round robin tournament. So you played every team once. Team with the best record won. Yeah. That was it. And the Russians had probably their worst tournament ever. Whether they beat us or not, they could finish no higher than 6th in the tournament. And I think we had to win by 5 goals in order to have an opportunity to win the gold medal.
Yeah.
And we were well on our way to doing that, accomplishing that. And, but the game was chippy right from the very start. I don't know if you remember back in the day, Canada had an opportunity to win a medal at one of the World Championships, and the Czechs and the Russians played 2-0 tie, so that Canada wouldn't win a medal or whatever.
Yeah,
and so the Russians knew that that they were out of the tournament, and so it was a chippy game right from the very start. And then halfway through the game, Everett Sanapass, who was a draft pick of the Chicago Blackhawks, and my line mate, got into an altercation with one of the Russian guys, and then they started throwing punches with their gloves on, and then we all sort of went over to observe. And as that happened, I got cross-checked from behind. Then one of my teammates, Steve Chason, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, he jumped in, and then all hell broke loose. And the next thing I remember was looking up towards the bench, and both benches were coming at us, gloves, and it was like a yard sale. And so we brawled for like 45 minutes on the ice, and they turned the lights out because they thought that would stop the fighting. Didn't happen. And so we're, it stopped. We cleaned up the ice, went back in the dressing room, and I don't know how long we were there, probably half an hour. And Dennis McDonald, who was the CEO of Hockey Canada, or it was Canadian Amateur Hockey Association at the time before they became Hockey Canada, he came in the dressing room and basically said, get undressed. We've been disqualified. We've been kicked out of the tournament and all that. And so that was it. But, what happened the next year was we went back to the World Junior, and it was in Moscow, Soviet Union, Communist Soviet Union. And we beat the Russians in their own rink. Same rink that Paul Henderson scored the goal in 1972 against the Russians. And so I was the captain of that team, which was, an incredible honor. And we had 12 first-round draft picks on that team. And Joe Sakic was our fourth-line centerman on that team. So, it was an incredible experience. And, love the fact that, we went right into, Russia and stole it from them.
Got a bit of a revenge, so to speak.
Well, and they had a line of Fedorov, McGillney, and Bure. That was their number one line. So crazy.
Yeah, pretty lights out.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Fleury, when did you start playing hockey?
I started playing when I was 5 years old. Went down to the local arena in the town that I was living in and stepped on the ice and fell in love right away. And then nice. I would spend the next 35 years, in a rink, and being a part of a team and, having tremendous amounts of success, early on in my, my hockey life. I got to play with the same 13 guys for the first 9 years of my hockey life. And we won 3 provincial championships in hockey and 3 provincial championships in baseball, with the same 13 guys. And,
wow.
It was amazing. And, I got the blueprint for success, early on in my life. And then, as I climbed up the ladder and started advancing in my career, it was awesome. And, I have 6 championship rings, and to me, that's ultimately what it's all about. And the reason why we play is, first, have fun, enjoy yourself, but secondly, to compete and have success. And I played with the greatest players that ever played the game, played on some of the greatest teams ever assembled. And, it was an amazing experience. You dream about, playing professional sports and for me, it exceeded every expectation that I ever had. It just, I just wanted to be a full-time NHLer, just be a solid player. But I kept improving and I kept getting better, and I was surrounded with lots of talent and lots of great coaching, and lots of great people. So, that shit rubs off on you and makes you better as well, pushes you to be better.
Yeah, for sure it does.
Because if you don't get better, you get left behind.
That's right.
That part.
I got left behind when I played hockey, so let's be honest. Actually, Theo, I was just looking at the roster for the 1989 Calgary Flames, and a name that stuck out to me really quick actually was Rich Chernamaz. He was on the team. He was one of my first hockey schools, Rob Schick Hockey School in Port Alberni. Rich Chernamaz was there. So it was kind of neat.
Rich was my captain in Salt Lake City in the minors. So
Nice.
Yeah. Great guy, great competitor. He was like the Reg Dunlop of,
Yeah.
from Slapshot,
Yeah.
Reg Dunlop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great guy. And then Rob Schick was a ref in the NHL,
yeah,
for many years.
Yeah, he's from Port Alberni. Rob Schick is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know Cherno's from out there that way too. So
Yeah. So Theo, you played in the WHL with the Moose Jaw Warriors. The Dub was a tough league back then. What are some crazy moments you remember playing in the WHL?
Every night.
Lumber coming out.
Well, my first year in the Western League, I played at 5'3", 125 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And, all the heavyweights that became heavyweights in the NHL were playing in the Western League at that time. Stu Grimson, Wendell Clark, Ken Baumgartner, Dave Manson, Craig Berube, all these guys were playing in the league,
Wow.
my first year in the league. And so it was, like I said, there was a bench clearing brawl or a line brawl every single night, and, it's really where I developed my style of play that became, quite famous, in the NHL, and what's interesting is the Hockey News came out with the top 10 power forwards in the NHL. And I was number 7 on that list at 5'6", 150 pounds. So, I had to play that style, because I needed to get room on the ice, right?
Yeah.
Because if I had room and I had space, then, my skill level and my talent would come to the forefront. And so I played a very aggressive, and I competed at the highest level. Like, I hated to lose.
Yeah.
And, I always said I was willing to die in order to win. And I knew that 75% of the guys that I was playing against didn't want to go there.
Right.
And if they didn't want to go there, then I could take them anywhere on the ice and do whatever I wanted to them, because I knew there was never going to be any pushback,
Yeah.
and that allowed me to have.
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that passion when you work your whole life from a kid with a dream, and then, for me, high school, then it starts to become a reality. Oh, I'm gonna get a Division I scholarship,
Mhm.
play football. And, it starts all over as a freshman, and then sophomore, then junior. Then now it's that same thing. Like, oh, I might really have a real opportunity to make it to the NFL.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going. And then people don't understand. Because I played till I was 35, covering
Wow.
guys in their early 20s. I'm damn near old enough to be their daddy, but I'm
Mhm.
playing with. And even to this day at 41, I'm in tip-top shape. So it's I think, just the burning desire to want to achieve something so spectacular, and even with humility, though. It's not so much me. Like, you think about it, like, man, I just want to be legendary.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done,
Mm-hmm.
Look back on your career and be like, damn, I was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's it's how you prepare, but for me, competing is the most rewarding part, right? And what I loved the most was playing against guys who competed at the same level that I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when it got fun, because now I got to reach inside myself and dig deeper and find something that I never knew that I had in me. Right. You know, and, you know, like I was 50 pounds lighter and 6 inches shorter than the average hockey player.
Yeah.
Right. So how do I find success? Well, I find success through competing. Right.
Yeah.
That's how you find success. And that's how you find out who you really are as an athlete. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't substitute heart.
No.
And see, I think a lot of times, you know, the armchair GMs of the world, the fans, not all fans, but there are a lot of people who've never done it. So they don't understand the work, the passion, the drive, the grit, the grind that it takes for you to make it to that level. Because we're talking about, I'm pretty sure hockey's the same way. When you're talking about football here, basketball, but you're talking about a 1 percentile.
Yeah.
It's like damn near better chances winning the lottery. So
Yeah.
I don't think everybody truly understands what it all entails for a guy to ascend that high and make it, and then not only get there but have staying power.
Yeah. Yeah, like to play 15 years in the NHL, you know, when the average career is 3 years maybe.
Yeah.
You know. And you know, there's only 700 jobs in the NHL. Like there's no more jobs.
That's right.
And you know, we have 9 million kids worldwide competing for what? What's the turnover every year? 60 jobs a year are available in the NHL.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no more jobs,
Yeah.
you know, because Ovechkin has a 10-year deal. Crosby has a 10-year deal. Taves, Kane, you know, all these guys have 10-year deals. So those jobs aren't available.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's all those intangibles that Dante just talked about that are going to get you, you know, to that next level. Right. Like I seen guys that were way more talented than me, but they never made it because they didn't have the heart. They didn't have the fucking compete. They didn't have, you know, all these intangibles that make people great.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, what's the NFL? 2,000 jobs, maybe 30,
15 or 1,800, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many kids are playing football? Like
in the United States.
Insane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many colleges are there?
Man, a couple hundred.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a very finite, you know, thing.
Yeah.
That gets you to the next level.
Yeah. It's amazing that a person can will themselves, you know, to that level, because it does take so much, man. And you know, people got to understand that. So, you know, sometimes now that I'm retired, I, you know, talk to people that never did it to that extent or on that level, when they talking all this shit, and I'm just like, you have no. This is a business. It's not a game. These guys, we weren't getting paid that money to just play a game. It's serious business.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure you're aware of this too. You know, the politics. It's not about who's the best. It's a lot that goes into these things, and you know, the average person just doesn't understand. They think it's a bunch of spoiled, you know, grown men, kids running around playing a sport, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing glamorous about playing professional sports, right? Really, just the paycheck, That's it. You know, you're pretty much hurt all the time, right? You know, you got little nicks and bruises and all that. Sometimes they're a little bit more serious, but you know, I spend more time in the fucking training room than I did in the gym, you know, because of the style that I played, right? So, and now being in my 50s, you know, I'm feeling all feeling all the effects of, you know, playing the sport, you know,
Yeah.
where it's yeah, of course it's worth it, you know. But yeah, people don't realize how competitive it is, you know, like it's highly competitive. And if you don't, like, if you take one day off, there's a guy on the practice squad who wants your job.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
and he's willing to do everything it takes to get your job.
Yep.
And some.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. For
Yeah.
sure. So, yep.
Oh, so go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, Theo, I was going to ask really quick question here. So apparently you guys put Vaseline on in section 2 of the old Medicine Hat Arena. do you want to explain that story for our listeners?
Yeah, there used to be a group of fans in Medicine Hat that were relentless. You know, they trash talked from the time they entered the rink until the time we left. And so me and Mike Keene, and Mike Keene was a practical joker guy. We were at the rink early and we said, we got to do something to these guys. And so we took a jar of Vaseline and we Vaseline their whole section. And so when they sat in their seats, you know, they weren't too happy. They weren't too pleased. So, but it was fun. Shut them up for a while.
Vaseline, though, I mean, who comes up with that idea?
Well, we used it before games, like, because guys would put Vaseline on their face, the fighters.
Yeah.
So when they hit each other, it would just slide off, like it wouldn't rip the skin. So guys would be all Vaselined up, and yeah, those were the good old days. Yeah.
So Theo, what were your expectations heading to the draft in '87? Did you have?
I didn't really have any expectations, you know. I knew that I wasn't gonna be picked, you know, high, and you know, it was because I didn't get drafted my first year of eligibility, which was 1986. I didn't get drafted, and so you know, I was crushed, right? But at the same time, I was really motivated, right, for the next year. And that's when I made the World Junior team, when nobody said I was had a chance to make the World Junior team. You know, that tournament's mostly for 19-year-olds, and I made it as an 18-year-old. So, you know, that sort of put me on the map and in that sort of elite level for the first time. Mm-hmm. And you know, what was interesting was there was 415 guys selected before me in those two drafts.
Yeah.
Because the first year of eligibility, there was 12 rounds. I didn't get picked. And then the following year, I got picked 166th overall in the 8th round. And it was funny. I tweeted out this year at the NHL draft. I said, doesn't matter what number you get picked, it's where you finish. Mm-hmm. And so I had a screenshot of the top all-time scorers in the NHL. And I said, I was picked 415th in the draft, and I finished 64th in all-time scoring in the NHL. So I always say, you know, it's not where you start, it's where you finish, right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's important to remember.
Definitely. So Theo, talk to our listeners about playing with intimidation.
Well, there's an aspect to it, right? You know, at 5'6", 155 pounds, you know, I was able to intimidate guys, you know, first with my skill, but you know, we've talked a lot about compete level, you know, if there was a W on the other side of a brick wall, I'm going through the brick wall to get the W, right? That was my attitude. And that intimidated a lot of guys that I played against because, like I said, they weren't willing to go to that place.
Mhm.
And if they weren't willing to go to that place, then, I own you. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. What position did you play, Dante?
Defensive back, corner.
So if you could get in the head of a receiver,
Mm-hmm.
you owned them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it intimidating, by being very physical. A lot of receivers, prima donnas, they don't want to.
Oh yeah, exactly. They don't want to get hurt. Yeah.
So, it's a situation to where I knew for me, the preparation was key. So, the whole off season was where you garnered your all-star, your all-pro. A lot of people don't understand that part. They think it's not when you show up and play the game. It's all the preparation in the off season that prepares you for that moment.
Yep.
And film study, reading the scouting report, try to get some information. If social media came out on the back end of my career, but I mean,
Yep.
you look up stuff and find little things about people, talk shit to them. Yeah, what about your girlfriend?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but
For sure.
The sports at that level is just the ultimate high, and it's nothing that can match it, like the adrenaline rush. And
Yeah.
I think, for a lot of guys, once they're finished, I think they struggle with that part. Me and Ryan was talking about some of that stuff the other day, but I think they struggle big time with their whole life. They're getting prepared to do. They're on a schedule.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, what I'm gonna do? You know what I mean? So, how was your first NFL game?
You spend your whole life dreaming about that moment, right? And preparing yourself for that moment. And I definitely wasn't intimidated by it. I knew I had already seen it, right? Because when you're doing mental work, you put yourself in that place already, right? And so I was ready for it. And it was a thrill of a lifetime, skate out on the Saddle Dome ice in front of 20,000 people. It was, I think my hair was standing straight up in my helmet, before the game and stuff. But, once the game started, I felt comfortable, and I knew that, that I wasn't out of place, or, I wasn't intimidated by the situation or anything like that. And, just wanted to have an impact in the game, right? In some way, shape, or form. And, it was a thrill for sure, and then just, continually build and continually get better, because like I said, my goal was, I just wanted to be, a solid, reliable NHL player. But what happened was I kept getting better, right? I kept getting better. I kept working at, the skills that I needed to get better. And I just kept getting better. And then, I was surrounded with a tremendous amount of talent too, right? Which obviously makes you better, being around people who are driven and, motivated and all that stuff. And, 6 months later, we were carrying the Stanley Cup around the Montreal Forum. So, to be a part of that was, pretty incredible. Not only, I made the NHL and then won a Stanley Cup in the same year. So, it was a pretty wild 6-month ride. That's for sure.
Were you guys not the only NHL team to win a Stanley Cup in Montreal?
Yeah, we're the one and only team that ever carried the Stanley Cup in the Montreal Forum as a visitor. So,
wow,
it was kind of like cherry on top of the sundae to to be able to do that. So, what a building! Like, it's like Montreal Forum was like the Vatican of hockey. It was, when you looked up and you saw those, what was it, 23, 24 Stanley Cup banners, it was just like, wow, and it was, it's the mecca of hockey,
Mhm.
we, grew up as a kid watching, them win 5 Stanley Cups in a row, right? With Guy Lafleur and Serge Savard and, all those guys, so it was kind of cool to be able to, go into that building and, carry the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Oh.
Huge thrill.
How did you spend your day with the cup? Because I know when I won 2 Grey Cups.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a whole lot of shit getting poured in that cup in the locker room.
Yeah.
And dropped in there. There was a lot of shit.
Oh yeah. So I was the youngest guy on the team, and so I got the cup last.
Gotcha.
And the season had already started by the time I got it. And so it was funny because our PR director, came up to me after practice and he said, "Hey, do you want to take the cup home with you tonight?" And I was like, "What?" And so I brought the cup home. I just invited a few friends over and, we took some pictures with it. And then I kicked my girlfriend out of bed that night and I slept with it. So, yeah. But, to me, what I get addicted to is the process of winning, right? And to me, the ring and the trophy is nice, but what's more important to me is the memories of, going through 2.5, 3 months of intense hockey, and what it takes and, the ups and downs, the in-betweens of trying to win a championship. That's, to me, that's what every, armchair quarterback wishes they could have had that experience, right? Because everybody, the last thing in the process of winning is you get presented a trophy and they give you a ring. Like that's the last thing that happens in the process.
Yeah.
Everything that leads up to that final moment, is what I love about, the experience of winning is the process.
So Theo, being a Canuck fan, I remember Mike Vernon standing on his head against Vancouver in the first round of the '89 Cup run. What do you remember of that series?
Well, the first round of the playoffs is the hardest round to win because everybody starts with a clean slate, right?
Yeah.
I think we finished fucking 40 points ahead of Vancouver that year, and they won the first game in our home building, right? And so we were on our heels right from the very beginning, and Vancouver. And the one thing, momentum, when there's shifts in momentum, it's hard to get that momentum back once the other team, has it. And we allowed them for the majority of the series to have a lot of the momentum. And, I'm sure at the beginning of the series, their belief that they could beat us was, a lot lower than as the series went on. They started to believe, that they could beat us. And, we were lucky. We were really lucky. And if Vernie doesn't make those, 3-4 unbelievable saves in overtime, I don't have a Stanley Cup, right?
No.
So, and then I played another 14 years after that, and I never got a sniff of the Stanley Cup after that.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason is, I think I played in 5 game 7s and 4 of them went to overtime and only won 1.
Wow.
Of those. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So the first round was always the hardest. And I would say in the majority of those series, we were the favorite. We finished ahead of, the team that we were playing against. And so, there's a tremendous amount of pressure for us to, to be successful. And we had some great teams in Calgary after '89. We won the Stanley Cup, and we just couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs for whatever reason. So, yeah. And then when I went to Colorado, we lost to Dallas in Game 7 of the conference finals, and then Dallas went on to beat Buffalo, for their one and only Stanley Cup. So if we would have got by, Dallas, I would probably have 2 Stanley Cups. So
nice.
Yeah.
It sucks, man. I feel like we should have won at least 4 or 5 Grey Cups. First year we went in 04, ended up losing year. We hosted the Western Final. We should have won it in 07. Like, we could have had a run.
Yeah.
We had some pretty damn good teams in Vancouver volleyball. Won a lot of games, but two championships not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, multiple is good, because a lot of guys that play that don't even win one. Look at Dan Marino.
Yeah, Milt Stiegel. That man played 15 years. Never got a Grey Cup.
Right.
That man back there.
Yeah.
And he was the man.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: there's big things with rivalry, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was the Battle of Alberta for you? I know Edmonton and Calgary, and you got Saskatchewan and Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Battle of Alberta.
Well, it was barbaric. It was violent. It was, but, as an athlete, those are the games you want to play in. Those are the games that, you find out who you are, right? Because, it was a different feeling when you were putting on your equipment for those games as to the other games. You're putting on a suit of armor because you're going to war.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to hurt each other. That's how much we hated each other. Like, we were trying to hurt each other. Like, when we were slashing guys, we were hoping to hit bone, right? And but yeah, it was, those games were always circled on the calendar, right? Because, and the fan base of both cities, like, they didn't care about whatever else happened in the regular season. As long as we beat Edmonton, that's all that mattered, right? And we had a rivalry with Vancouver too that was pretty much similar in the 90s too, where we were both good teams, and we had some great battles with the Canucks and the Oilers. So yeah, those games were, you were preparing to go to war. And I would say after every game, every guy had an ice bag, right? So they were fun to play. And most times we played on Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. So, the biggest audience in Canada was watching us play. And so, that added to the rivalry for sure, because you didn't want to fucking get embarrassed on TV, right? So, so it was all that. So, but it was, like I said, it was, to me, those were the funnest games to play in, because, you found out what you were made of.
Yeah.
Right.
So Theo, the 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, the gold medal game against the Czech Republic. What are your thoughts on Wayne Gretzky's name not getting called for the shootout?
Well, you know what? that was our first time at the Olympics.
Yeah.
And, the shootout wasn't a part of the NHL at that point.
Right.
And so everything happened really fast, and I don't think we were even aware of the fact that Wayne wasn't one of the guys that was selected to shoot, and like, I was the first shooter in the shootout, and, the game ended, and then, Mark Crawford said to me on the bench, he says, "You're going to shoot first." And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I haven't had any time to prepare, for this, for this moment. Right. So, And, that's the thing. You can second guess all you want. I think the guys that got picked to shoot were, all Hall of Famers, and we had probably 10 more Hall of Famers that were sitting on the bench, and, I remember Wayne saying many times, just away from the rink that he hated breakaways. He said he wasn't good at breakaways. And so maybe him and the coaching staff had a conversation before that happened or whatever. But, I was more into the moment and, like I hate the shootout in the regular season. Yeah, it's fine. But, at the Olympics, it's a team sport and it should be decided by, and it was a weird game. The Czechs scored the first goal in the game and they didn't come in our end the rest of the game.
Right.
Yeah. And it was, they were just hanging on, right? Because they knew they had the best goalie in the world at that time in Hasek, and he was unbelievable on breakaways, right? And we went 0 for 5, right? So, but I always said they should have just thrown a Scrabble board in the middle of the fucking rink and had Hasek and Patrick Waugh fucking play Scrabble, because that's not how hockey's decided. Hockey's a team sport, and to settle a game of that magnitude, with an individual skills competition was, didn't sit well.
No.
Can you tell us about your experience in the Olympics and winning a gold medal? That's like the high.
Yeah.
The high.
Yeah, it was, well, the disappointment of 98, was motivation. And, our biggest rival at that time was the US, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Americans. And they had beat us in the 96 World Cup of Hockey. They beat us for the very first time. Americans beat us in the final. So there was all that, motivation. And and it had been 52 years to the day the last time Canada won a gold medal at the Olympics. Right. So there was all these storylines, sort of in the mix. But, that team was like ridiculous. How good it was, when you think that Brendan Shanahan, Joe Newdike, and Theo Fleury were the fourth line on Team Canada, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, what did we have? 1,600 goals in the NHL and like over 3,000 points as a line, and we're playing on the fourth line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then to beat the Americans in America, in Salt Lake City, was one of those things. But, and, as a kid growing up, you don't dream about playing the Olympics. You dream about playing the NHL, because the NHL players weren't allowed to play in the Olympics when I was growing up, right? It was still amateur sport, right? So to sort of top off my whole entire, hockey career with the gold medal at the Olympics was, and to be one of only 20 players in 52 years to have a gold medal, in ice hockey at the Olympics was unbelievable.
Yeah.
To be a part of it, and 80 million people watched that game worldwide.
Wow.
So yeah, like it doesn't get any bigger.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So how was your transition life after being a professional athlete? I know some people struggle more than others. I kind of felt like mine wasn't as difficult because it feels like it segued right into coaching and training. So I'm still like a part of the game.
Yeah.
How was your transition?
Shit show. Yeah, it wasn't good for me. I left the game because of an addiction and mental health issue. And so, I didn't get to leave on my own terms. 16 years ago, I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth, ready to pull the trigger and end my life because of, I'd lived the majority of my life in emotional pain and I was exhausted. And, but that whole incident was really the start of my transition to post-playing career. And, I work in the field of trauma, mental health, and addiction now, and helping people deal with, whatever they need to deal with, and, provide support and, listening and all that stuff. And so, I've written a couple books. I've done a couple documentaries on the subject. I'm a speaker. I'm a facilitator. I do workshops, all that kind of stuff. So, and the book, like my first book, which was my autobiography, was really the turning point in my life, and I've been in this space now for about 12, 15 years now. And it's probably been the most rewarding thing that I've done, in my whole entire life. And to be able to help people who are, at the end of their, the end of their rope, deciding whether they want to live or they want to die, it's pretty intense and pretty real. And, I've been able to help lots of people get on a path in the journey of, healing and self-discovery and, therapy and all that stuff. And so it's been amazing. It's been incredible. But, I was one of those guys that I didn't have a plan B, after my career was over, I didn't have a plan. And so, I struggled for a long time. I retired, I left the game in 2003 and wrote the book in 2009. So there was a 6-year period where, I did all kinds of jobs. I had my own company, I worked for other people, all this stuff, because I didn't know where I sort of fit in the world. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I told my story where I, really found some purpose and some, a reason to get out of bed every day.
Right. Yeah. So Theo, you were really honest in your book, Playing with Fire, about how your life went and the things that were happening to you. What made you decide to write your book?
Well, like I said, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And, I was carrying around a lot of secrets. And a lot of people didn't know, like, what happened. And so, and I was, I was struggling, right? And the one thing I hadn't tried yet was honesty. And, when I wrote the book, I was as honest as I could possibly be. And because of that, like I said, I found, the true purpose for my life. And that was to help people who had gone through similar situations, such as myself. And, the biggest epidemic on the planet isn't COVID-19.
Nope.
It's trauma, mental health, and addiction. That's the biggest epidemic on the planet.
Yeah.
And, there's so much stigma attached to it. And so as an advocate, that's what we fight every day, is stigma, right?
Yeah.
And because of the stigma, that's why we're in this, epidemic state of, mental illness and addiction issues and all that stuff. And so every day, we try to get the message out there that, not only are you not in the minority, but you're in the majority. If you struggle with some sort of, whatever it is, you're in the majority, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's actually what I do for a living. I work at a family development center for drug and alcohol addictions.
Okay.
In Alberta here. It's called.
So you see it.
I see it every day, and it's an amazing feeling to help make a positive change in someone's life. We get families in for 6 weeks We teach them how to be a family again. The kids, we have a school at my work. The kids go to school. The parents go to courses. They go to AA, all types of stuff. And it's an amazing feeling. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and I think essentially that's why we're all here, is to help people, right? Yeah. Whether you're coaching, whether you're a facilitator or whatever it is, I think when you're in that space of helping somebody improve, themselves, it's incredibly rewarding, right?
Definitely.
Because you get to leave a mark.
Yeah.
And, I know for me, when it was all said and done, I now know what my purpose is. Like, God has a funny way of using you as a vessel. And it's like, okay, all our personal selfish wants and desires was to be a professional athlete. So it's crazy how he allowed you to get the success that what your heart desired. But then you not knowing that was all the process of you coming full circle and now walking in your purpose. Because I never thought I would, mentoring, coaching, training, speaking engagements, have a bachelor's and a master's degrees, because where I come from, statistics, man. So to be able to navigate my way through and overcome a lot of adversity to get to where I am now, and then having the platform and the ability to use my resume, if you will, to do what I do is like the most rewarding thing ever.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that, whatever you get, you got to give it away, right?
Yeah.
Because why go through the struggle if, when you come out the other side, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with all that information and that knowledge and all that? Well, you got to teach it to other people, right? So, and whatever that looks like, for you, like Dante, I grew up really, really poor. Like we had nothing, I lived in a low rental home. Both my parents had addiction issues and I knew that I was better than what I was being shown. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where that motivation, that's where that drive, that's where all that compete comes from, is because, I knew what my fate would be if I stayed in that space.
I mean, so I dealt with a bout of depression when I went through my divorce. So for me, I think by me actually playing ball still, having that outlet, that saved my life. I never felt suicidal, but I was in a deep, deep, dark place.
Yeah.
So for me, I told Ryan before, it felt like I had a backpack on for like a year. Like I had and I don't want to sound too out there, but God is real.
Yeah.
So I had spirit attached to me for about a year. Like I just felt I didn't have, like I had a backpack on. What the hell? Tents in the traps and shit.
Heavy, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, football gave me that outlet, right, to be able to bottle up all that negative energy and just immerse myself in my career and what I was doing. And I think that helped. So, what advice could you give people struggling with, mental issues?
Yeah, the biggest thing is you got to move. Like you got to move physically. You got to move, right? So whether that's walking or exercising or whatever it is, because movement changes your chemistry in your body, gives you dopamine, serotonin, all these amazing chemicals, which, keep us sort of happy. So, but for me, when I get into depressive states, I have a really hard time moving, right?
Yeah.
And especially now there's fucking 2 feet of snow, so it's like, what do I do? Right.
Yeah.
And so, I do 4 or 5 of these podcasts every week different people's podcasts. I have my own podcast. You know, that's how I deal with my depression, is talking about it, right? You know, and realizing that, you know, this is part of my life, you know, accepting that that I have mental illness, right? And there are going to be periods in my life where, you know, I'm going to fluctuate in between, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do meditation, you know, I practice spiritual practices, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, I pray, I meditate, you know, I go to sweat lodges, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, when you when you say God is real, yeah, it's absolutely real, you know, and faith is what, you know, carries us through those difficult times, whatever that looks like to you, right?
Definitely. You gotta have it.
Gotta have it.
Me and Ryan talked about this too before we did a show, and it talked about depression and mental issues and, you know, anxiety, things of that nature. So, I think most people can't understand it if they've never been through it, because that's how I was. Like in my early 20s, I was off seasons I was a group home counselor.
Oh wow. Okay.
I was like, yo, you know, I'm early 20-something. I'm a pro football player. I'm just basically getting paid, you know, kind of hanging out with kids, sort of.
Yeah.
And so anyway, you know, I would sit in on home visits with the, you know, the parents that come to the facility.
Yeah.
We'd do therapy sessions, and then I would do one-on-one sessions with the kids and go over their, you know, stuff. And you have a kid, oh, Mr. Dante, I'm depressed. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what do you mean? Life is awesome. Mm-hmm. And I never really truly understood the magnitude of this stuff until I was in the gym, about 33 years old, and I had an anxiety attack. Like, I felt imminent danger, like I was about to die.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like crazy. And I got so scared, jumped in my car, drove home, ran in the house, went and jumped in the bed and was just like, I'm a grown ass man. What's going on? This don't feel right. Mm-hmm. So that was the start of it. And I really couldn't understand it until I went through it. So I think that the toughest thing is trying to, and then you go into doctors like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you, but you don't understand.
Yeah.
So I think what you're doing is critical, because you got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that for anything for that matter, you have to communicate with others and because you never know, right? I'm a defensive coordinator at a junior college area, so some, you know, about mental health, because, you know, a lot of these kids here in the United States are suffering because they can't function. Their grades are dropping. They just can't function, you know, doing school from home and on a Zoom. There was an 11-year-old who killed himself on Zoom. And it's just, you know, when like I said, when you communicate, you find out different things. One of my players like, oh, Coach Marsh, I never knew. Nobody know that unless I tell them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know, because it's quality information. You know what I mean? So I think that's real good. You used your plight, if you will, turned it in, or you could help somebody else as well.
Well, because I knew that it wasn't uncommon, you know.
No.
You know that you know, everybody's going to experience a panic attack. Everybody's going to experience depression. You know, it's called life, right? And it's what you do with that matters the most, right? And by sharing, you know, by you sharing, by me sharing, you know, Ryan sharing, you know, makes it okay, right? Makes it real, you know, not alone, right? So thanks for listening to Inside the Minds.